Welcome back to the Jason Show, minus a Jason. Instead, you get Kendall. Shane and Kendall holding it down. It is a story of revival happening at the Minnesota Zoo. A breed of horses once extinct in the wild are making a comeback thanks to our zoo.
A few months ago, 6 Asian wild horses came to the Minnesota Zoo from other zoos across the country so they could get acclimated to the cold weather. For real, before returning to the wild next year. And this week, I visited the zoo to learn more about this full circle moment. This is the closest I've ever been to a wild horse, and like my Black Beauty dreams are coming true. But they don't look exactly like what I would expect. Tell me, what is the biggest difference between a wild horse and the horses that we're used to seeing like at Canterbury Park or just domesticated horse?
That's a whole different species of horse. These guys are wild, never been domesticated. They are the same way that they have been for thousands of years. In fact, these guys have existed since, 50,000 BC at least. A big difference is they have an extra pair of chromosomes in their DNA over the domestic horse. They also went extinct in the wild in the late 60s. Last of them disappeared. They were found in the Asian steppes throughout Russia, China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan.
So why is it? How did they become extinct?
Basically because they had no place to live anymore. The people living in those countries kind of took over their homes. There was some hunting, they shot them, made them for food, but basically they drove them out of their homes by domestic livestock.
You don't really mess with their breeding, right?
We don't, and that's a big difference between wild and domestic. In domestic animals, we take them and we breed them for the traits that we like. And so we've made the domestic horse a bigger animal. We made them stronger, like draft horses. These guys are wild. These guys have never been domesticated by people. All we have left now are descended out of 13 animals. So that's not a lot of diversity left. So we try to maintain as much as possible. So we breed least related animals together.
There's a reason that they're here. You said that Russia is taking them all back, all these horses from around the States. And it's cold here, it's like Siberia. And that's how you've gotten all these horses here, yes?
We needed a place to send them to get used to winter. And Minnesota, we're good at that. We got plenty of winter. And so all the horses came from here, from San Diego, from the Smithsonian, from El Paso, from the wilds. All came here to mix with our horses and get used to cold weather.
All I can think of is like the horses from El Paso and San Diego, like, girl, where'd you just bring me?
Yeah, I think they were a little shocked when we first got them there.
Shocked. I didn't realize this. This is not a normal thing to bring horses here and then transplant them somewhere else to go back into the wild.
Yeah.
Animals in general, it's not totally normal.
This is a really unique opportunity to be able to participate in the reintroduction of an animal, particularly a big charismatic animal like an Asian wild horse. So we're really excited about that opportunity.
And you guys have done this, you said, on a smaller level with butterflies. Literally, the size difference is enormous. You've done this with butterflies.
We are working with 2 types of butterflies. One of them is called the Dakota skipper. So it used to be very prevalent across the western portion of Minnesota and the Dakotas and such. And this will be year 4 for us for reintroductions of butterflies. So similar concept on a smaller scale with a much smaller animal than our Asian wild horses here.
It's one thing to send a horse from El Paso, Texas, up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's another thing to send a horse out into the wilds of Russia.
Right, and they're literally going halfway around the world. And what we've learned is it is no small feat to get a horse from the United States to Russia. So they will be shipped from Chicago to Moscow, and then they will be awaiting another plane in Moscow to Orenburg, which is the site of the reserve in Russia. So it'll be quite a journey for the horses. We know this is going to be a stressful event for the horses. We know it's going to be stressful for them once they get into Russia, getting acclimated to their new surroundings. So one of the things I'm really excited to do is monitor those stress hormones, those stress levels, and figure out how long it takes them to actually acclimate to their surroundings. And that'll help us to ultimately inform reintroduction science going forward.
How else do you measure that?
What we're actually planning to do, and this is something that needs to be sorted out a little bit more yet, but is looking at poop. So we're at a zoo, so of course we can talk about poop. So the corticosteroid levels in the poop can really reflect stress levels. So if we're able to collect those poop samples regularly, that will allow us to track their stress over time. Very funny.
Things you learn on your average day at the Minnesota Zoo. You can measure stress in poop. I think Oprah once said that too. She did.
Sure.
She did.
Okay.
Oh, trying to convince that guy. Sure.
I did ask too, and by the way, if you go to the Minnesota Zoo, you can actually see these horses. We saw the ones that were in the pen, but they sort of rotate them out too. So you can see them right now while they're there. But one thing that I asked one of the guys, I said, were there ever wild horses like that in America? And they said, actually, according to them, no, that they were horses that we think of in history were brought over by the Spaniards. So they were never here until we brought them over.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really interesting.
Well, you love horses too, so I'm sure that was like
I was like,
moment.
they started walking towards me, and like I was terrified, but also like, this is beautiful.
You're
at
a
the same
horse
time.
whisperer.
It's like horse whisperer. It was just like chuffing with a lion. It was the same exact thing.
It was just like that.
Just like it,
Just like
guys.
that.